Hey guys, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. Glad you guys can make it tonight. Yeah. So, guys, let's dive right into it. Hope everybody's doing well. The title of this live is Infrastructure is More Important Than Money. What do I mean by that? Well, it's always the little man, right? That gets stepped on in society, right? The blue collar guy, okay? And yeah, I talk about this all the time, but I just want to give a different perspective or give you a different perspective on the subject of the true value of money, right? And it really has no value without infrastructure. And so, okay, I'll ask you this question, guys. I'll ask you this question right here. If somebody gave you $1 million cash, okay, right now, no strings attached, but there was nothing to spend it on. There were no roads, right? There were no there's no power grid. Okay, there's no clean water. Uh, what would you buy with that $1 million? Right? There was no stores to spend the money. There's nothing, no buildings or nothing. What would you do with the $1 million? That $1 million cash would be worth absolutely nothing, right? Because there's nothing to spend it on, right? So just that right there tells you that infrastructure is more important than money, right? And by extension, the people that build the infrastructure, right, that bring it into existence, into physical existence, the people who erect the buildings, the people who make sure that your water's clean, the people who build the roads, right? All the lowly people in society, right? The people that work with their hands. Now from that perspective, they're actually very valuable, right? Um, so that right there tells you that money is only valuable if it's inside uh, a functioning infrastructure or a functioning world, right? So um, if you think about it, the people that are highly esteemed in society, especially in the financial world, are the crypto bosses, right? The stock traders, hedge fund managers, bankers, people like that. They didn't build the infrastructure; they just operate within it, and for some reason, they have been elevated to the higher echelons of society because they know how to move money around on a computer or whatever, right? And so things are flipped. It's almost like the people that teach your kids in school. Teachers really, they're paid, from my understanding, unless they're a tenured professor in college or something. But if they're just a regular high school teacher or junior high or whatever, I don't know the exact salary, but it's not a lot, right? Compared to a banker or a, financier or somebody like that, right? Two extremes, right? But who's more valuable? The person that, like I said, moves money around and that can buy a yacht or a very expensive home at their whim, or the person that teaches your kids, that puts knowledge into your kids' heads, shapes and molds their view of the world. Who's more important? Who's more valuable? Well, in the Western society, that teacher might as well be spat upon because they're not even thought of. They're an afterthought, right? And that's the product, right? That thinking is the result, I should say, of a world that's very individualistic and very materialistic. Now, I'm not going to get on my high horse and say I don't like money or I don't like nice things. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's all about priorities, right? And I think a lot of today's ills are the result of being, of your mindset being skewed towards a Western mentality, which is seeking wealth by all means, by any means necessary. Because material things, uh, numbers on a screen in your bank account is worth more than a person's character, right? And so, you know, that's basically, so let's get back to what I was really trying to get at is who builds this infrastructure. Like I said, it's not the banks, the bankers, and all those guys. No, it's the pipe fitters, right? The construction workers, the iron workers, the carpenters, um, any trade, electrical, HVAC, all the trades I talk about on this channel. They're the ones that actually build real value. They're the ones that provide the foundation for what we call currency and money to flow. Okay, because without a foundation, you might as well forget it. Okay, so if you think about an area that has a lot of natural resources that's locked up in the ground, right? You can think of some parts of Africa, or you have even over here in North America, you have pockets of land where oil is in the ground, right? Or whatever resource that's considered valuable or essential for running a functioning economy today. Without the infrastructure to extract those natural resources, even though it's a very rich area potentially, but without the tools, right? Whatever, the machines or whatever to extract these resources from the earth, it's worthless. It's just in the ground, right? So that's another analogy right there to show you that infrastructure and people with skilled hands and the knowledge to extract actual wealth, physical assets like gold or oil or whatever, right, from the ground. Without those people, you really don't have anything. You're not wealthy at all without these people, right? Without this intellectual property in people that allows them to be able to create the economies and create the world that you live in today. And just by that, that right there explains the title of this live, right? That infrastructure is way more important than money. Money is actually created after the infrastructure is created. Okay, and some people may say, well, it takes money to create infrastructure. It doesn't matter. The infrastructure still had to be created to generate money, right? To generate what we call money, what we call currency. Okay, but we treat money like it's the foundation of everything, like it's the foundation of society, when it's the actual reverse, right? It's the actual opposite. And any major city that you can think of, whether it's in the Western world, of New York, London, even like these mega cities like Dubai and all that stuff, they had to build the infrastructure first to become what they are now, right? And when that infrastructure is gone, like in the case of I think Dubai, because of this war that's going on over there in the Middle East, Dubai, I think, became a ghost town because they were under siege. Correct me if I'm wrong. Which tells you that once the infrastructure is attacked or threatened, everything like just goes downhill. Okay, because you're going to need people to rebuild it, right? You're going to need people to rebuild the grid, the telecommunication systems, the railway systems, everything that we enjoy today in the modern world, from transportation to communication, and all of that, is because somebody got trained in the basic skills and the basic trades, and we're able to come in and fix things, right, and make it whole again, or rebuild cities, right? That's the importance of infrastructure. That's why I push the trades all the time, especially to young folks. That there will always be an opportunity in the trades, right? Your stock portfolio may dive, right? Your crypto, you may lose crypto, all your crypto in the crypto markets or something like that. Your business may go downhill, but guess what? The trades never will, right? Everything can be wiped out, but it has to be rebuilt again, right? And that's why there'll always be an opportunity for you to advance in the trades and enjoy the fruits of that. So yeah, that's basically the gist of this live, is to understand, let's get a perspective here. I think um, in the Western world, right, we, which is so driven by materialism, okay, that we lose sight of the true value out there. It's in people, right? Whether it's their minds, their hands, the true value of any civilization, of any nation, is in its people. And when its people are undervalued, right, or they're given false priorities, then that's the beginning of the collapse of that particular nation or civilization. Anytime you neglect the people who actually built that said nation or said city or said civilization, the minute they start to neglect themselves or be neglected by their governments, or taken advantage of, that's the beginning of the end. Okay. And I think you may see hints of that today, in today's world, what's going on right now, when we look around and see how things are being handled. Um, yeah. So it's always, what do they say? It's the cornerstone. When that cornerstone is neglected, it's like a house of cards that's going to collapse on itself. And the cornerstone at the end of the day is the people, right? It's you and me, right? When we stop seeing the value in each other, whether it's in personal relationships or the relationship between the government and its people, whether it's the federal government or state governments or city governments, law enforcement, you know, it's a house of cards, okay? Because if it's built on the foundation of undervaluing a certain segment of society, then it's on its way down. It may not happen right away, but guaranteed it will happen. Okay, that's just the law of things. All right. So if we don't start respecting our those who we consider on the lower levels, which is wrong right there, because like I said, they're probably even more valuable than those on the higher levels, but everything is twisted around where we think the people that have, that are running these large enterprises, that they're more valuable than the person that built the building. That's the beginning of the end right there. Okay. A society that sustains itself on that kind of mentality or ideology, has already signed its own death warrant at the end of the day. Okay. And I'm not to get too far off in the political side of things, but it just makes sense. Okay. So we need to tell the next generations, the generations that come behind us, teach them, okay, to value everybody, right? Everybody has a place, and teach them that without the people that know how to build the infrastructure, use, the skills tradespeople, right? Teach them to respect those people more than anybody else. Maybe I shouldn't say more than anybody else, but just as much as anyone else, right? But until that happens, it's always gonna, it's just a matter of time. You're gonna have revolutions. You're gonna have unrest, discontent, because you're paying a teacher less than you're paying a hedge fund manager, right? When those disparities go unchecked, they go unchecked and they go unremedied, then there'll always be discontent, or even at worst, an apathetic spirit on the nation, right? And apathy is probably worse, because then it's you don't feel anything anymore, because it's normal to you right now. You don't even want to fight for what's better, okay, anymore. You've accepted your lot. And that to me is when your soul starts to rot, because you've accepted it. You accepted the fact that you're seen as undervalued, seen as second, third class, and that, that's where you belong. And that's what they want, right? They want you to think that way, right? So they can maintain the status quo. And, if enough people are apathetic, then once again, that's the beginning of the end, if not close to the end. And when I say the end, it doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to fall apart, but internally, it has, cemented itself into a stagnant, type of mechanism that can only function so far. Imagine, or function up to a certain capacity. Imagine if people were treated right. How, the so-called idea of America being, very, the land of the free and home of the brave. When you lift up the curtain, or you pull back the curtain, lift up the rug, you see all the, you see all the dirt. You see all the dirt that's there, that was never cleaned up. It was just covered up, and it never really lived up to its full potential, right? It was just a pipe dream sold to everybody else in the world. And that's where we are today. Okay. All right. So yeah, just to sum that up, it's the infrastructure builders, right? Those are the true assets of any nation, of any, of wherever you look in the world. It's the builders, right? One that the people that are able to, sustain and maintain a fully functioning infrastructure, on top of which everything else depends, right? So let's give a shout out to the tradespeople, and I encourage the kids out there, if you're looking for opportunities, look into the trades, guys. I'm coming out with a basic course, a basic tool course for you, to get you familiar with how to use tools and stuff like that. So at least give you a taste of what it can do for you, right? And yeah, we got a skilled labor shortage here in this country that needs to be addressed as well. And so we need to change the narrative about the trades, and that's part of the mission of this channel. Okay, and it's also for the average DIYer or somebody that wants to know how to use a particular tool. Yeah, it's for that too, right? But there's a bigger mission at hand here, okay, that I think that's very necessary, because the very future of this nation, and is at stake. Okay, so let's see. Anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. Take it as you wish, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Go check out the next video coming out on Thursday, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.